The customer complaint is that one of my guys came out and installed a solenoid for them on their master valve, and their neighbor called them to tell them that their sprinklers were on for several hours. I want to rule out the controller, so I'm going to grab my station master and disconnect the wires from the controller and control that solenoid with just this. That'll rule out the controller being the problem. If I go to turn it on with this and for some reason it doesn't turn off, which I don't actually think will happen, then it's the solenoid is the problem. But if I use this and the solenoid turns on and off, well, then the controller is the problem, and maybe that controller is the reason why it stayed on for several hours. Why am I doing it this way and not using the controller? That's why. I don't have access to the programming of that controller, so I can't tell them if the programming in the controller is any good or not. What I can tell them is whether or not my solenoid that we installed is any good or not. So let's do that. Moment of truth. Well, as you can hear, it just started up the zone sitting right next to me. Let's go ahead and shut that off. Oh, MP rotators, how nice. Now, with this in the off position, it should shut off the valve and not keep it on for 6 hours. Let's wait for that valve to shut down. Maybe they were having some trouble, which would require... The problem here wasn't the controller. As you can see, my tester came disconnected, which would have forced the solenoid to close, which would have shut off the system. Actually, let's go ahead and connect this back up. What I ended up doing was I adjusted the flow control of the valve over there, that little knob on the top of it right there, and I adjusted it so that it would shut off. If you leave a valve, like any valve actually, wide open, it will cause the valve to get stuck open like that. So let's go ahead and try this again. All right, we're on, and no more power. That should be bingo. On again. No more power. There's the rotors in the back, and the valve should shut down. It is not. Let's adjust the flow control even more, just a little bit, until we hear the valve close, because we have told it to turn off, unless, there, it turned off. Perfect. Now, we're gonna turn it back on, turn it back off several times. Now, we wanna turn it on and let it come up to pressure. So we just did that. Now it's up to pressure. Time to shut it down. So I got the switch off. And it shut it down. Good stuff. We're gonna run through all the zones, make sure that it doesn't get hung up on another zone. The other thing that could be happening here is there could be an issue with the diaphragm in there. That valve wasn't replaced, just the solenoid. All right, we got the other rotor zone in the backyard on. I just shut it off, and boom. I just heard the valve close. Now the valve is acting like it should. All righty, beautiful. All right, well, that's how I ended up using my Station Master by Tempo instead of using the Beehive controller. I will talk to the customer about programming, because that could be part of the issue, but I actually think that the issue here was that valve was stuck or set in the wide open position, which you should never do. Anytime you install a new valve, take the flow control and spin it a couple of turns. Not all the way, just like maybe 1 or 2 full revolutions. I'm gonna come back on this one because I already adjusted it. I'm gonna put the wires back on here, call the customer, let them know that this was a warranty call, because we could have checked this when we installed it to make sure that it was gonna turn on and off. Clearly, we didn't do a good enough job of that. We will learn from this situation, which is why I'm sharing it with all of you, so that we can all learn from this situation. That was the problem here. Now we can put all this back together and make a phone call.